Individuals and Solid Waste Pollution by Amar. Firstly, what is the solid waste pollution crisis? Well, the EPA defines solid waste as any garbage or refuse resulting from industrial, commercial, or agricultural activities. The EPA also reported that the average per person amount of municipal solid waste has increased by a pound in the United States between 1980 and 2015. And as you can see here, in the United States in 2015, 262.4 million tons of trash were generated, and of this, 137.7 million tons were sent to landfills. Next, what is the landfill crisis? Well, this chart by the EPA shows the breakdown of where our waste goes. And as you can see, landfilling makes up the majority with 52.5%. And the EPA recommends this number to be around 20%, meaning that a major shift is required. This leads to the question of, can Americans reduce the production of solid waste sufficiently to solve the current landfill crisis? So, how can individuals solve this pollution crisis? Well, the power of individuals has been proven to be effective throughout history, perhaps most notably the American Civil Rights Movement. Now, during the Civil Rights Movement, various small-scale protests occurred, such as boycotts, which culminated in an uprising that changed the United States forever. Now, the leader of the American Civil Rights Movement, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., once stated in a letter he wrote from the Birmingham jail, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Also mentioned in the stimulus materials is Margaret Thatcher's address to the United Nations General Assembly, in which she stated that we must resist the simplistic tendency to blame modern multinational industry for the damage being done to the environment. Now, both of these quotes urge us to act, and we must not stand around and wait for others to do so. This is no different when it comes to the landfill crisis. It is an injustice that the issue still exists, and we continue to blame others instead of creating impactful change. So, what are some ways that we can act? Well, one solution is to set regulations on how much waste is sent to landfills. Now, one of the pros is that this solution will not have any direct costs as opposed to creating more landfills, as this solution will increase the need for landfills, as stated by the next pro. The cons, however, is that this solution will have long-term results, and the fact that many cities will be unable to cut down on their landfill use due to the fact that they require the energy produced by these said landfills. So, what are the limitations and implications of this solution? Well, one of the implications is to follow a system similar to California's Zero Waste by 2020 program, in which, as stated by Dr. Abby Bradford, sets many regulations and ordinances and has seen great results, with the city now sending 80% less trash to landfills. Also, Idaho has one of the lowest trash per person rates in the United States, as stated by the EPA, due to their incredibly low, their high regulations on how much waste is sent to these landfills. A limitation, however, lies in, as stated by DNA Info, which reported on Chicago, Illinois' BLUE program, which was a program to increase Chicago's minuscule 10% landfill diversion rate. However, after 5 years with the program, the city has been able to increase its diversion rate by a mere 1%. Now, another solution is to have an increased emphasis and create more programs for reduction and reuse. The pros of this solution include the fact that this solution will increase awareness of the general public for years to come. Another is that the results of this solution will be shown in a shorter period of time as compared to solution one, and this solution will directly reduce the amount of waste produced, as you can see. The cons, however, are that this solution will not directly stop these landfills from being built, as initially, waste will still flow into these landfills. Also, these programs may have higher costs depending on the caliber of the program. So, what are some limitations and implications of this solution? Well, an implication of this solution could be to follow an approach used by the United Kingdom's RAP organization, which provides environmental solutions to businesses and cities. Now, one of their most effective reduction-based solutions, according to their 2015 data, was to increase the amount of labels that told if a product was able to be reused in grocery stores. Another one of their solutions implemented was to increase the amount of reusable products available. Now, a limitation, however, lies in the cost, as seen in Michigan, where the city had to cut its Mission Green program after it became too costly, as Bill Will, who is a mayor of one of the affected cities, had to report. So, in conclusion, solution one, which is to set regulations on how much waste is sent to landfills, is the more viable option. Despite the long-term results, this solution will more directly stop the use of landfills, as opposed to a solution that may or may not stop the use of landfills. Also, this solution focuses on prevention rather than remediation. And Rod Ukaidel, who is the CEO of Impact Fluid, which is an oil company, stated that, "I would encourage engineers to build a preventative approach into their project designs. Planning for failure and remediation is rarely a better value than prevention. Preventing oil spills is much easier than cleaning them up." So, if we all step up, one by one, and uphold any proposed regulations, and uphold them for years to come, we will be able to cut down on solid waste pollution and solve the landfill crisis. As Margaret Thatcher said when she addressed the United Nations General Assembly in 1989, may we all be equal to the task. Thank you.
Thank you, Amar. What information did you need before you started your research, and how did that information shape your research?
I would say initially that I would need information I would need statistics about how poor the landfill issue had become before I could go on, as this would form the base of my issue solutions.
Okay. And then what advice would you have for other people who are considering researching the topic of waste?
I would say that for anyone else researching this topic would to really dig deep when it comes to finding these statistics. As my personal experience, I often found myself having to scratch various sources due to the fact that I would then go on and find a source that told a completely opposite story. So I would say to really dig deep and perhaps go toward more credible sources. Just make sure to dig deep.
Okay, thank you.